Okay, this is the final lecture, lecture 3 for lesson 12, and this one is about the final project in this class, which is project number 4. If you look over here, you'll see a student example of project number 4. What it is a combination of imaginative shapes using 1- and 2-point perspective and an imaginary light source and shading it with all your pencils. So there's 2 parts to that, and that's over here. So that's the first thing I'm going to talk about and illustrate here. Now, again, you will have a in-class project here that you will work on before you start to make sure you understand it. And what this is right here is a simple layout of, you see 3 different kinds of shapes, and these are 3 2-point shapes because these are closest corners. This says 1 point, vanishing point. That means the 3 shapes have to go to this 1 point. So you're going to draw that and make an end to them. Then you'll go to the 2-point shapes. Now all 3 2-point shapes will all go to the same 2 points. So this one would go here and there. This one's on the line. This one's above the line. Remember, we just talked about that. And then you make your ends here and then complete the bottom. This one's below the line, so that goes up here. So you draw those 3, and then this is your light source. So that means that this would be the sun or something, and so you're going to shade these, and what you have is a very simple project here. And if I was to just quickly do this, now you see the lines have to be parallel. You see that with the front line. This one, it can go out right to the edge of that circle, like that, and you would mimic the circle wherever you wanted to, only it would be smaller. This one we've already talked about that. This one's fairly simple. So those are all the 1 points. Then the 2 points. There, this one's on the line. I'll define mine to be right there. And I'll do this one goes over here. So you're going to do this in class first before you do your own imaginary one. So you see, everybody gets it right. So everybody understands it. And once everybody's on the same page, then we can do some interesting stuff with it. Okay, so I didn't finish going over here with it, but that's where it goes. Okay, so this is part 1. Oh, I didn't do this one yet. I'm kind of eyeballing it. I kind of know where they're going to go. Okay, so part 1 is that you're going to do this, but it's going to be really creative, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Right now, this is the one you're doing in class, so everybody understands it. Okay, the light source, light can emanate like this. Okay, but it is at the upper left. That's what this is called, the upper left. So that means that everything in the bottom would probably be shaded like this because the light can't get to it. Okay, light can't get to this side. Not sure what happens here, huh? Who knows, right? That's where you start to have to think about what you think's going to happen. This might do that. This might be like that. And this one might be like that. And you go, well, what about this one? Well, maybe, but it can't be the same value as this, and this is where things start to get difficult. See? Because this one can't be the same darkness as the one below it. And usually the ones that are farther away, as I said, there was a primary and secondary planes. Now, this is very simple, but what you're asked to do in part 2 of this project is that you have to shade the background from dark to light. And then you start here at again and go dark to light. just like the student example. Dark to light, dark to light. It is important that you do the background first on the practice piece and on your original when you get to part 2. Because you're going to run into problems with how do you solve the shading these things for imaginary light. And if you solve these first, you won't be able to do a very even tonal blend in the background because you'll have to compensate for everything you did up here. So you have to do the backgrounds first. And you can't leave white in the background. You need to get the value from black all the way to a light gray, black all the way to a light gray, around the shapes. Then you go in and do the shapes with the light source in a specific spot. In this, in your workbook, you have a light source, has to be here. You have very simple set of shapes. In the original in the project, you're going to be asked to do 9 shapes. You're going to be asked to do, let's see, what do I want to do here? 3 above the horizon, 3 on the horizon line, and 3 below the horizon line. You can use 1 and 2 point perspective, just like we did in this example. Now, one thing you can do with these shapes, and I'll make a couple suggestions, is that let's start out with a simple shape like this. Let's say you want 1 point and you're going to put your 1 point here. And it doesn't matter how many shapes you use. You have to have 9 shapes total. 3, 3, and 3. So you have to have 9 shapes in here. You want to try and make them overlap a little bit. One of the things about shapes, I'll put one here and I'm going to use 2 point perspective, is that what you're trying to do is first you draw a geometric shape. Then I say, well, how creative can you get in this particular shape? And what do you mean by that? Well, it's like being a sculptor. And let's say you want to try and carve a piece out of it. Let's say I cut this out here. And I'm going to get my gum eraser and I erase that. And I say, how's that? Well, that's okay, but it really didn't help you to do anything interesting or challenging as far as how you used your perspective. I mean, it looks okay, but it doesn't really have any interesting geometry to it. And you go, what do you mean by that? Well, if you did a cut, like let's say here, and you cut a piece out, and this is going to this point here now. Let's say I went, here, and this had to go there. Then this has to go here. And I'm going to stop that here. Now I have 2 more points. This one's going to go there. This one's going to go there. Then I have a corner. And then I have a vertical line. So now what I've got is, I'll erase this so you can see what happened. This was a little more interesting because of what I picked to do with it. You see, I ended up cutting a corner out of the front. And by doing that, it's a little more dramatic and interesting, and there's a lot more stuff for me to shade and things like that. So that's a little better of an idea than this one. I mean, you could do that. I could do, and the thing is if you pick a point like this, you have to go to these points with it, if that's what you're going to do, and then that gives it some sense of logic, but it depends on what you pick as to whether it's going to look interesting or not. See, what I just picked here, I'm not sure that really was that helpful. I mean, it doesn't really look very good to me. I mean, it's okay, right? It's starting to look like some kind of modern day Bauhaus or one of these new architectural buildings or something. Or you can cut holes in it. Now, if you put a hole in it, you really can't see the other side, so all you really have is that. See, there's really not much you can do with that. If you were to, let's say, let's see if I cut a U out of the top like that, then I have 2 points here, and they have to go there, and then I would repeat the U over here. So now what did I do is I cut out a piece out of the top. So you see, now I made this little thing in here. So you see, there's quite a bit that you can do with this to make very interesting shapes in part 1 of this project. And you'll be dealing with part 1 in this class in lesson 12. And you're not going to worry about the light source or anything like that. You're just going to, first you'll end up doing this. And that's pretty simple, shouldn't take that long. Once that's done and you understand it, then you're going to go to your larger piece of paper and you're going to build your 9 shapes using 1 and 2 point perspective, and they're all going to be rectilinear shapes, and then you start to cut little things out of them. And that's basically what it is for part 1. And then part 2, we can talk about it again in the next lesson. But basically, it's just going to be the value shading, as I've already discussed. So that's the end of the 3rd lecture for lesson 12.